David, this was the first article that I have ever read on this issue that is happening in Wisconsin with these John Doe investigations that really personalizes this issue and makes it about more than just some sort of campaign finance law stuff, which is how I think local media has been able to justify virtually ignoring this story. You start out in your piece with not one, not two, not three instances where innocent conservatives who've simply worked with budget reforms in Wisconsin, they have battering rams pushing in their doors in the middle of the night. Their children are terrified, their possessions confiscated, and it's all over absolutely nothing. Just it's a political vendetta. Tell us about this.
That's exactly right. I think what makes this story stand out is for the first time a number of the victims of these raids have come forward to tell their story. For a long time, this has been cast as just a normal kind of investigation that you hear about all the time in politics where people look into campaign finance issues. This was something else entirely. It was the weaponization of law enforcement against conservative thought. You know, it was incredibly brave of three women to come forward, one on the record, two anonymously, to tell the story of what happened to their family, which, as you said, included things such as police officers going into their sleeping children's bedroom, investigators taunting them to their face while police officers carried out their personal belongings, a warning not to tell anyone about what occurred and denying them access to a lawyer during the course of the raid itself. All of these things, when you talk about it, you think, well, that's the kind of thing that happens maybe to meth dealers or violent criminals. This was something that was done, it appears to be as a pure intimidation tactic to try to terrify conservatives into silence in Wisconsin. Here, the process of the investigation worked as punishment for conservative speech, and they're often investigating things that weren't even crimes to begin with. They were investigating protected First Amendment expression.
And it's this investigation and this secrecy is legally protected with this. It's the John Doe investigation is what it's called, which allows them, basically, they can tell people don't talk about this. They don't get a grand jury. They just get some judge. It's definitely, this is not the due process that we think that we're supposed to get under the Constitution.
Right, it's a constitutional atrocity. It's this incredibly odd law in Wisconsin that can require not just secrecy from the prosecution, which is typical in grand jury proceedings, but it can require the targets of an investigation to be silent. Now, what ends up happening in the real world is that the prosecution is able to take very public actions, like raiding a home in a crowded neighborhood where journalists are even tipped off that the police are going to be there, and then require the targets of the investigation to not defend themselves in public, to not speak about it, and in these cases, to not even speak with friends and family about this incredibly traumatic event. And so the combination of the secrecy requirement and the public raids meant that these people were publicly shamed, and then they were unable to defend themselves, unable to say, look, this was a political vendetta. I'm guilty of nothing other than advocating for conservative causes. And so the law enforcement officials were able to essentially shame in public these people, leaving them with no recourse until now that three women have had the guts to stand up and to tell their stories.
And I'm going to come back to you here in just a minute, David, because whenever you have a campaign like this, somebody's always giving the orders. Now, Eric O'Keefe is the director of Wisconsin Club for Growth, and he's been living this nightmare. And Eric was one of the reasons that we're even talking about the stories, because Eric's group, they led the first big-time public official pushback against this. Eric, how long have you been living this nightmare?
17 and a half, no, it's 18 and a half months, October 3rd, and it's been, my life since then has been conducting the litigation and the strategy for our team. And I would have been unable to do it if I honored the secrecy order, which is unconstitutional. So had I honored their secrecy order, I couldn't have organized our defense, interviewed lots of lawyers, and run a strategy effort. So I decided quickly, look, you know, this is supposed to be a free country. I'm going to operate as though it is, even if it isn't today. So I've been persistently defying the secrecy order to uphold the Constitution.